I'll put up a link to it, even though it has a bad word or two in it. But there's a very good music video. I think it's Five Finger Death Punch. It's called A Little Bit Off Today. I'm a little bit off today. Anyways, in the video, which is very well done, they did it at the height of COVID, so they couldn't have any kind of crowds. It was literally just like two film crew guys and the lead singer out walking around Las Vegas. But they had a scene where the devil and God are playing chess and using him as a piece. And that's kind of what I feel happened today. I don't want to talk too much about it, but I ran into a little trouble at work. Nothing I would say is major. I know that's a consequence in part. One, I did make a mistake, and I own that. I own that to the person. But and number two, I think some of it is blowback from me doing outreach. Period. Not just going and doing a handout, because I don't think a handout is more special than me just doing the day-to-day evangelism, the candy lady ministry, if you will. I think it's all equally important. But I had some significant appointments on the way home. I'm not going to say much because I feel it is important. Especially lately, I feel it's very important if I'm going to be doing any kind of public forum, that I need to be very, very careful of confidentiality and privacy for the recipient, because I wouldn't want somebody making a spectacle out of me or my troubles. And that has happened. Rabble rousers. And so I won't say much, but there was a person on one of my buses, and they were in tears, and it was very quiet tears, just kind of wiping them away, but just having a terrible time. And they weren't mentally ill, they weren't homeless, they were wearing a uniform, they were carrying a laptop, backpack, they were what you would say a respectable citizen. But, they were just having a bad day, and God allowed me to reach out, which was very special to me, because, I remember one night after Ron's accident, and guys, this is how God can use you if you let him. I was crying in the ICU waiting room. I was all by myself. I felt so alone. There were a few other people there waiting on their family members, but, we were all kind of isolated from each other. And there was an attendant at the desk, and it was basically their job to play gatekeeper. And also, I guess, to notify us if somebody died. I never really thought of that. But anyway, I don't know what that is. And and I was just, I found somewhere private, and I just crying. I just by myself. I just had my head in my hands, just crying. I'm like, God, please just send somebody to comfort me and to remind me that you're here, to remind me that you love me. And there was nobody. I didn't even have a cell phone at the time. It was 2003, and I had very, very limited internet access. I had a laptop at home. It was an old, used laptop I had bought on eBay. I eventually figured out how I could take it to the hospital and jack it into their network and hack the dialing string on the modem. That's how old this thing was. And get out and log on to my favorite message board. But it was a lot of work, and if they caught me, I would get yelled at. But I was just in such pain, guys, and I just felt so alone. And I remember that as I looked at this person tonight, and that's how God can use you. if you let him. And, I will never say I had the hardest life. I will never say I had an easy life. It's, everybody's going to look at my life differently, everybody. So I don't, I'm not going to make a statement like that. But God has used bad things in my life to make me more sensitive to other people. So that was significant to me. And that helps kind of with the work stuff. And a lot of it too, I just have to surrender it to God and say, God, you're in control of everything, and you're directing me, and you're using me, and I have to just, focus on that. So I do, and I'm not gonna worry about it, but I'll do better. But that's all I can do. The problem is, I will be very, very brief on this, is that from what I have seen in my online associates group, corporate, as a rule, is simultaneously cutting associate hours while asking them to do more, and with only very minimal pay raise at the beginning of the year and no additional benefits. So you can make your own conclusion on that. Now, I've taken this to the cross, and God has said, for now, you need to stay out where you are. So I'm going to do that. It isn't easy, though. There's nothing about it that's easy. But something cool did happen tonight. So I have lost weight, and people at work weren't really saying anything until I started wearing clothes that fit better, And then they started making comments, which is fine. It's all been very positive. One of the malicious gossips was going around telling people I had cancer and telling me I had cancer and I had to get it checked out before it spread. And I'm like, really? I didn't think that was very kind. Because, Anyways, she said I was, quote, losing too much weight. Guys, I was 169 this morning. That is not too much weight. So, anyway, I was getting ready to start work, and I went by, and I passed a person, and I was near personnel, and I thought, I'm going to go in and ask for a new vest. And I went in, and my coach, who is my team lead's boss, I have team lead, and then she has a boss, and she's basically right under the store manager. I'm like, whoa, okay. And then there were two other equally important people in there, the personnel lady and the another manager. And I said, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I'll come back. And then, oh, no, come in, Heather. Tell us what it is. I'm like, ah. And I'm thinking, if it had been an issue with the coach, that would have been very, very awkward. But it wasn't. And, of course, and I said, can I get a new vest? The extra large is kind of big on me now. And she said, sure. And I said, oh, okay. And the third manager handed me something. It was a vest. And I said, thanks. And I started to walk out. And she said, no, put it on now. We want to see it. And I put it on. It fit great. And I said, thank you. This is good. And she said, Heather, that's a medium. I have not been a medium since the early 90s. So that was very significant for me. And I swore a little, actually. And well, for me, I think I said holy crap or something, but yeah, I was very shocked. And it fit great, and I did good all night. And so that was a good start. Not a great end, but I got out of there and For once, there were no dramas with my first bus, the Crazy Train. Several times in the last month or so, there have been issues with this bus a mile or two before it gets to me, where somebody has been on the bus and gotten so rambunctious they had to pull over and have them hauled off in handcuffs. That's happened like 3 times at least. And it delays the bus significantly. You know, I was an hour late getting home last night, but I had appointments. So, you know, I'll walk home if it means I have an appointment. Anyway, I was delighted to see he was right on time. And I had my appointment on the bus. The driver did not want the candy. I think the driver knew that the candy came with Jesus and was not open to the gospel at this point. And that's all right. You know, that's the thing about God. You have a complete right to reject the gospel. No one's going to force you into it. It's unfortunate if you do, but, you know, it's your choice. So I just said, okay. Doesn't mean I can't pray for this person, and I will. I do. The way I see it, if you oppose outreach, my outreach, that's fine. And I still love you. I will pray for you. I will fight for you. I will fight for your soul. Not because I feel like I get anything out of it, but because I love my recipients. And I would do anything for them. And, you know, I just, you know, I feel very strongly about that. And I have such a weird spectrum of recipients. I've had surgeons, I've had homeless people, you name it. It's just the whole spectrum. Addicts, tweakers, alkies, just a whole lot of just everyday working people. You know, it's just a very interesting spectrum God has sent me. And so but I had the appointment on that bus, and I made my transfer, and I did 5 more on the last bus, so that was good. But then the fun thing for me is when I start handing out stuff, other people get interested, and they'll ask, "Can I have that?" And I say, "Absolutely," and I just start digging, and I just keep pulling it out, and until I run out, which happily very seldom happens. So God equips me pretty well to bring what I need. And people, like in the morning, may all say, "No, I don't want anything," but in the evening I get mobbed, and there it goes, you know. So I'm fine with that. I don't worry about it, you know. If you want it, you're getting it, and you're getting prayed for. And so I'm almost home, and the computer made my schedule for the weekend 12 to 5. The management did not like that, so they fixed it to a different schedule, working later. So it's fine. It's still pretty active in the neighborhood right now. I am getting some World Cup people. They're pretty evenly split between polite and rude. Most of them have pretty good English, which is good. Because my Spanish is pretty horrible. I don't know if I ever told you guys this story, but a couple months ago, I had a customer came up to me, and she asked me if I spoke Spanish. I said, "Not really." And she started talking to me in Spanish, and I got the gist of what she was saying. So I answered in my very bad Spanish, you know. I gave her the answer in my very bad Spanish with a lot of pointing and, you know, where the item was. And she got mad, and she stormed off. And she came back, and she had a Spanish-speaking associate with her. And she's pointing at me, and the gist of what she says is her Spanish is terrible. And The associate and I just looked at each other. And I told the associate that's exactly what I told her. And, she just shrugged and, said, sorry, ma'am. And the lady left. Why, hello. Hello there. Are you going to hiss its body? Are you going to hiss its body tonight? Are you going to hiss its body? What's funny is he's so small, he looks like a teenage cat. But he's at least a couple years old. So I'm just guessing he didn't get a lot of, he wasn't fed kitten food when he was a baby. They probably just fed him regular cat food. And he didn't develop properly. I had a cat I originally named Scrawny, but she became my first baby girl. I tend to reuse cat names. And I found her in a trash can, licking the grease off of a cup of chicken nugget sauce. And she was a calico, a dilute calico, kind of dingy, the dirty looking calicos. And she was just so outraged, like, Heather, where have you been? Do you know what I'm eating? And I took her home, of course, and she was a great little cat, but she was very, very small, like, I think 3 pounds or something. And I thought she was still a baby, but she had a heat cycle a couple weeks later, and I realized, oh wow, you're almost full grown. And I got her spayed, of course, and I had her for about 1.5 years before the neighbors poisoned her. It was a very bad place where I live. And that's why I don't worry about my venues. The places I have lived are really, really bad. There's a guy on an electric scooter. He was coming down the street and he saw me and he went around. So I'm gonna watch. I think it's a kid because it was just like a regular scooter. It's not electric, but it bears watching. So yeah, even full grown, she was very small, 4 pounds tops. She was just a tiny girl. Coming back, hanging a Yui, going back. I don't know what the deal is here. Whether it's just a kid and they said you can only go as far as that house or what. I think it may be that fat little kid on the bike. Well, he's not little. He's like a fat young teenager, like 12 or so kid, and he's always checking out my snack box. So I took the snack box in because, hi, I just looked over happy because I didn't want him eating all the snacks. And he does not need any snacks, let me tell you. But yeah, he's not coming back. So I'm gonna watch though for a minute. Yeah, he's coming back. I'm gonna set the buggy down. What? Who lets their kid ride a scooter up and down a dark street in a suburban neighborhood at 11 o'clock at night? That's not something I think a good parent would do. And I have been working on being judgmental, but it's hard not to be judgmental when you see stuff like that. It's like some of the people at my store, they come in with a little toddler. The toddler wants to get out of the cart. They're like maybe 3 years old. They take him out of the cart. The kid walks off and they don't even notice. And, we have to, like an associate has to find, runs into them and takes them up front to customer service, and they have to pay the paid somebody, but yeah, that's just sad. Okay. I'm going to come inside because I don't necessarily want the kid to know where I live. You just don't know these days. Alrighty, that's it.